morning, Peter. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I am doing well. I was just talking with you about how behind the scenes it was a very, very long day for me yesterday. So lots of extra coffee for the show this morning.
Well, cheers to you.
Cheers. It was fun. I went down to Atlanta for the Microsoft AI tour, which is very topical for today, right? We're getting into IAMCP and a lot of what it has to offer around that. So this is a very Microsoft centric 36 hours for me, Peter.
You
So
don't overdose on this stuff.
I know I can overdose on the coffee. I almost did yesterday. Um, but hey, good morning to everybody out in the audience. I'm excited to have Peter here. I'll give Peter an opportunity to introduce himself in a minute. If you're currently a member with IMCP and you're tuning in, say hi. Let us know where you're from. If you're not a member of the IMCP, that's okay. Say hi and tell us what you're sipping on this morning. This is a engaging show. If you want to learn, it's always best to ask questions. I've got a run of show, but it's a heck of a lot more fun to see what the audience wants to talk about. And great to see you, Brett. I'm very excited to see you back on the show. It's been a while, so it's fun to see you here. I hope things are going well with the new gig. Um, Before I kick off and hand it off to Peter, I just wanted to say thanks to everybody for tuning in. This is going to be a really interesting one. I just learned about the IMCP, I would say, a few months ago as Peter and I sat down to talk. And it's an interesting organization that has a lot of value. That it's I would say, one of the best kept secrets if you are a Microsoft partner. So I don't want to do the pitch, though. I know about it 3 months ago. Peter, you've been involved for a long time. Let's hear your story. I want to know the Peter story, and then round out the story with why you got involved with IMCP, who you are representing the organization today, and a little bit about why we're here today.
Okay, great. Thanks, John. So my name is Peter Fidler, president founder of WCA Technologies, but also my part-time job is president of IAMCP Americas, which encompasses Canada, the U.S. states, Central America, and South America. Thrilled to be here today. Thrilled to have my second cup of coffee. Just grew up in New York City, grew up in Manhattan, on the Upper West Side of Manhattan. Just went to school here, then went to school in Boston for 4 years, came back because I love New York. And my first job was working for the mayor's office in New York City. And that's where I fell in love with technology and just absolutely enjoyed it and saw the impact it had on my work. We had 9 months. We're crazy busy. Then 3 months that you could do whatever you wanted. And I took that opportunity to learn as much as possible about technology, and that started my love affair. Started my company in 1988 with a partner who also worked for the mayor's office, and struggled for those first few years, and then just absolutely, joined organizations that enhanced, my learning, networking, etc. And around 2012, I was introduced to the IMCP by a colleague, and just went to a meeting. Wasn't quite sure what it was all about. It was just I thought it was a kumbaya moment. I wasn't quite sure, and then they started bringing in these subject matter experts, and all of a sudden was learning about something called Office 365, and we had a lot of email servers out there, whether Exchange or even Lotus Notes. We were working with Lotus Notes way back when, and just saw how this speeded up our knowledge on how to move people to the cloud. I mean, like instantaneous. And I just said, this is awesome, and just start talking to other partners, getting involved. And I was the membership chair of the New York City chapter. And then I became the pandemic president of the New York City uh, IMCP chapter. And then 2 years ago, I was the vice president of IMCP Americas. And then I ran for IMCP, and I don't even know if I voted for myself, but I became president of IMCP, and it's been crazy good. Just so many good people, so many just giving people, talented people. It's just absolutely amazing the amount of talent in the IMCP. And you're absolutely right. it's a secret. Nobody knows about it. I remember when you and I were talking about it, and you're like, "What is that all about?" And then you started looking around and said, "Hey, you got some good stuff here." I'm like, "We really do, and we need to amplify that. How do we get the word out?" So that's why I'm here. I've been in the president's role since January 1st, and just you know making relationships with different communities. I'm all about communities. I'm all
Mhm.
about sharing information. I'm part of, you know, the TrustX Alliance of Ingram Micro. I'm part of IT Nation Evolve with the peer groups, formerly HTG, and IMCP. And every community has been a benefit to not only me but to my organization. And that's I'm all about community.
I'm with you, Peter. I think, you know, as I heard your story, I want to kind of take the show into maybe two parts. I kind of have this idea now where you talked about that, taking my Lotus and on-prem to Office 365 and the velocity at which you were able to do it. I want to spend half the show maybe talking about your MSP, what you're doing with WCA and how you're interfacing with IMCP and how that learning is helping you traverse kind of this AI journey that's going on and what you're learning in those interactions. And then we'll split the last half of the show digging into deeply around IMCP and some of the benefits. And so, I just think starting where you're seeing value is probably the most value, and then maybe talking about the organization and some of its goals in the years will be fun. Good morning, Marcial. Always good to see you, buddy.
A fellow New Yorker.
Yeah,
Look at that. New York's in the house.
We got a lot of New York representation today. There's not a lot of Indiana folks that tend to jump on the show. I don't know that many Indiana folks in this space like us. But there are some good ones. We need an Indiana chapter is what we need, Peter.
That's
so
what
we
you
don't have to
did.
drive up to Chicago. So, well, let's jump in. I think, from my perspective, this is a very AI-centric show, so we'll kind of float around that topic. I think one of the things you said that stood out to me was the speed at which you were able to move, your customers from either Lotus Notes or the on-prem email servers to Office 365. Speed's a really critical topic today. I feel like velocity is just breakneck. How are you looking at speed and velocity around AI, and how are you interfacing with? You mentioned a few different peer groups. Those peer groups to learn. And yeah, Brett, you're right. 1 second. Brett, you're right. Henry Tim, that's not fair. Henry Tim's he's not Indianapolis. I apologize. I'm just representing Indy when I make that statement. So, Peter, back to that question, in the speed of velocity in AI, like how are you keeping up as your MSP, and how is IMCP playing part of it? Because I'm sure it's not all that answer.
It's crazy being in this role. You get exposed to a lot of the subject matter experts at Microsoft. So, there's sort of that top level when you talk to a salesperson or sales rep, they'll give you the company line. But what you really want is to get in the weeds a little bit, talking about AI, talking about roadmap, talking about, because if you looked at Copilot a year ago versus a Copilot now, it's significantly different. And it's so much better in terms of the capabilities, the reliability. Microsoft, whatever they're doing, whatever their investments are in terms of the program in their data centers and whatever else there is, it's making a big impact. So I remember talking to clients last year, and they're like, well, I don't really see the big deal here. And I'm like, well, your data is in Microsoft. Everything is self-contained, but it wasn't enough for some of the people. And now we're starting to get a little bit of that, what I'll call sizzle in the program, where it's a little bit sexy now, where you can do some pretty cool stuff. And I know you've played around with it for quite a bit. But here, it's happening so fast, but you almost need to sort of take a pause, slow down, and just strategize around that. Like, who's going to be your number one guy? Who's going to be your number two guy? Who's going to be your number three guy? And then augment it with people outside your organization. My organization is 23 people. We're very busy here, and not everybody, you can't dedicate two people full time to this platform. So what you do is you augment it. You use resources, whether it's with Ingram Micro or Paxade or a TD Synnex or SureWeb, and you utilize whatever resources they're making available to you. And plus, within the IAMCP, there's so many brilliant people, just absolutely. And that's what I'm finding out.
Yeah.
The resources in the IAMCP, because IAMCP is a partner-led organization. We do have sponsors and all that, but it's partner-led, meaning it's run by partners, and partners are contributing. A lot of the speakers that we have are partners that are working in AI, that have been working in the various technologies over the years. And I remember just being on a session, and all of a sudden something came out that was brand new, and I'm like, Teams messaging my team, you need to look at this now. You need to, and I'm trying to stay focused and stay sort of grounded and sort of had that New York cool going on while while this is going on. But I'm like, say, this is awesome stuff, and this can make a big difference. And we're rolling it out here. 100%. We put it with our management team, and now we're starting to roll it out with all our employees and sort of teaching them how to do that. So that you have to be smart in how you roll it out, because the worst thing is just to throw it out there and see what people can do without any direction or out any strategies and what's going to happen. And I think I've mentioned this to you more than once, is sort of like on that Christmas Day, you're opening up packages, you see this really cool toy, you play with it for a while, and then it doesn't become cool anymore. You sort of put it to the side. But if all of a sudden you have that cool toy, that's going to save you, 10% of your time, 20% of your time, 30% of your time. Then you got something. Then you can't live without it. Sort of like when, I'm old school here, so I apologize. Like when the calculator came out, it was like, this is cool. The calculator. And I know this is probably.
I'm here, Peter. I may not have calculator in my history timeline, but I've done about 17 years of this. I have some legacy stories that I get to tell.
Okay, all right. I don't want to,
No, but sorry to cut you off. Go ahead.
No, but I absolutely saw, what the difference it would make in what I was doing. If you see that, you're going to use that tools. Like when we first started using spreadsheets, when we started using, groupware with Lotus Notes, when you see that it's going to save you time and effort and have the ability to be able to collaborate with people, whether it's getting out an email, you could schedule so many different things now. What are the things I need to catch up on today? Oh, that's right, I forgot about that. I'm so glad that rather than searching through your email, all the things you either scheduled for follow-up or unread messages or whatever it is, or you pin it to the top, whatever mechanism you use to follow up on things, now you can automate that. And that is awesome. That's absolutely awesome.
Well, yeah, and I have a lot to add there. I'll add real quick. Mark Schilling. I do agree. Peter is a great guy. He's been a good friend to me as well.
Mark's a great guy too. Thanks, Mark.
Great to see you on, Mark. And Brett, no good telling Henry that I excluded him from the Indiana crew. I included him in the Indy crew. We'll give him those reps. I'm sure he drives through when he flies out to the conferences. I took some notes here, though. I want to pull apart a few things. One, we talked about Copilot, which I thought was an interesting one. Yesterday my learning was really deep around Copilot and the ecosystem, and I thought it was interesting at the AI tour where I picked up 90% of my pickups from that tour weren't features. Oh, maybe that's because I'm on Frontier and I'm learning all the tech and I'm always caught up there. But it was a lot of conversations around like governance and strategy and policy and adoption and words you use, training and enablement and some of this other stuff. And I think that's starting to become a really clear theme out of Microsoft now, is realizing that we can't just roll these tools out and become that 3 months away from Christmas present toy where there's no, I'm not playing with it anymore. And I'll add one little quip. I picked this up from, I'm not going to share who told it to me because it's kind of a bad approach. And it makes me kind of want to run a fun show called What Not to Do with AI. But I was talking to a name that everybody would know on the show if I said it. And I said, what is your strategy at your company? And they told me that their CEO told them if they're monitoring everybody's token usage every single day. And if they use less than 1,000 tokens per day, they get in trouble. And I just couldn't believe that they're like,
wow,
there's a whole show around how not to do it. Ben, yeah, I know. We're about the same age. We missed the calculator, but we did have to support T38 on fax machines. And Sandy, wonderful to see you. Have fun at Directions Up North America. But it's good to see you in the Uber. Thanks for tuning in for a few minutes. I wanted to talk about that, though. You talked about Copilot a year ago, Copilot now, and how you're keeping up with all of the things and all of the ecosystem. Is IAMCP helping you stay abreast with all of the things going on? How are you using the resource there to keep up with all of this breakneck innovation that's happening with Microsoft?
Well, it's bringing on those subject matter experts, bringing on Microsoft people, bringing on partners who are already doing Copilot or having experience with that. And then, the way the IAMCP is, and thanks Sandy. Sandy's awesome, and just want to acknowledge Sandy and don't get lost in that Uber. But it's not only the speakers, but the way the IAMCP is. There's Americas, and then you have your various chapters. And in the chapter meetings is where a lot of the sort of sharing goes along, those side conversations. How are you using it? What are you using? How are you rolling this out? In terms of either data governance, locking down security, whatever it is, you're talking with peers. So that's where you're learning from your peers, which I've always done, because I know there are just a whole lot of people who are smarter than I am. So I want to pick their brains. That's why I'm friends with you. I want to pick your brain, because you're absolutely brilliant at what you do. So I want to make sure. See, that's a compliment.
Thank you. I know. I'm Midwest. We don't accept compliments very well, Peter. It makes us uncomfortable.
No, but the point being is you want to surround yourself with people who have a different approach than you do. Because if I surround myself with people who think and act and whatever that I do, then it's like, you're just preaching to the choir, and it's amen. And you want to have different perspectives. You want to have people who disagree with how you roll things out. Like Mark Schilling, who was just he's using a completely different platform, and he's doing some unbelievable stuff with that. And I'm like, okay, well, how can I relate that to Copilot? How can I sort of do what he's doing in his platform and take his ideas, and he's absolutely brilliant also. So and put that into Copilot. So it's, I don't want to call it stealing, because everybody's a very giving person. You have that sort of go-giver attitude where people sort of give you information, give you tips or whatever, and expect nothing back in return, because the way the universe works is it just comes back to you naturally. So that's been my philosophy, and I know in my peer group that's totally huge. But IAMCP, I'm trying to take that same philosophy, put it within the IAMCP, and get more people talking to each other, getting the chapters to interact with one another, getting America's more engaged. We have all these incredible programs that we put on, incredible speakers. And when like a few people show up, I was like, you have no idea what you just missed.
Yeah.
You have no idea. And then you send them out a link to the recordings so they could see it, and they go, I should have been there. I could have asked them questions. I had some questions about certain things that, because I didn't show up, I didn't have that opportunity to ask the questions. I mean, you had your 17-hour trip where it's so important to show up. It's
Mhm.
absolutely important to show up. If you don't say this is not worth it. I went to something last night. I was tired. I just came back from a trip. I'm jet lagged, not feeling good. That's why I'm having all this coffee now, and it's very appropriate that we're doing this coffee talk. But
Yep.
I showed up and started talking about AI, and some guy says, "You need to speak to me. Can you call me tomorrow?" If I didn't show up, you just don't know whether you're going to engage with a client, a partner, some knowledge, some tidbit of knowledge that you can use in your business. If you don't show up, you don't have that opportunity. So the people who do well with the IMCP are the people who are
Yep.
engaged, going to the meetings, attending the webinars, just partnering and whatever the sessions are. And some of them are networking focused, some of them are vendor focused, because we need vendors, because we need their dollars.
Mhm.
So it's just about showing up.
Yeah, and I think I picked away a couple really valuable nuggets there. One of the first interactions that I got to exposure with on the IMCP side was when Erwin spoke, right? And he's brilliant, a great representative of Microsoft, and a deep understanding and empathy of our ecosystem, from the MSP side. And I know I've heard over the, I would say, last decade of being on the road and in the streets with a lot of our MSPs. Um, they feel like they have no connectivity to Microsoft. And that is kind of a little bit true in the sense that, Microsoft doesn't focus on that community. But what I saw in IMCP was an opportunity to bridge that exposure. To be able to be there and talk to the reps that are educated internally and externally, and being able to ask questions to the reps that are most equipped to be able to understand the interface between MSP and Microsoft. And so I found that as incredibly valuable because their perspectives are strong, but also being able to share what we as the community feel back to Microsoft, and having that conduit with IMCP is super powerful too. And so, when you talk about the subject matter expertise, I loved learning from people like an Erwin, but I also love the opportunity to educate somebody like an Erwin where we're at, so that can impact the way that Microsoft thinks a little bit. And so, it's a great opportunity there in my mind.
No, you're absolutely right. But you're not only getting the sales rep, you're getting executives.
Yeah.
So if you go and ask them that tough question, and maybe they don't have the answer, they're going to go back and say, "Hey, I had a couple of people ask me this question. What are we doing about this?"
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to have that opportunity anywhere else. You're
Absolutely.
not. You
Yeah.
know, we're putting these executives in front of people, and it's what you do there. And you can ask any questions. Yeah, obviously, it has to be in good
Appropriate.
taste.
Any appropriate question.
Any appropriate question. But that ability to ask that question, and because a lot of people think that Microsoft just doesn't care. It really doesn't care. They're laying people off. They don't care. They don't care what partners think. And if you're on the outside looking in, it really does have that appearance. It really does. But when I talk to an executive at Microsoft and they tell me, "We want your feedback. We want your and then you give them feedback and they make a change as a result of what you said, you're
Mhm.
making an impact.
Yeah.
So that's happened a number of times in this leadership position where I've said, "This is not right. This is not right. This is right, not right," because the IMCP is also an advocate for partners. It's not
Mhm.
just, it's not we're not there just to amplify Microsoft's message. I
Mhm.
mean, we are there for that, but we are there to also give feedback, and we do give feedback. We have regular calls. If Microsoft's calling your customers, why are you calling my customers? I know what my customers want. You
Yeah.
have no idea. You're coming in and you're just creating confusion. Then
Mhm.
we talk to Microsoft about that, about calling into our clients, and they listen to us. They made adjustments how they're doing it. They engaged the partner. They said, how can we help both you and your client? We see these opportunities that maybe you don't see as a partner.
Yeah.
You may not see that, but this is, have you thought about this or that? Just so if you look at it as a partnership and not
Mhm.
somebody who you're sort of fighting against, it's absolutely, and that opened my eyes a little bit, because I've heard a lot of feedback from my peers, either at TrustX or at HTG, IT Nation Evolve, about how Microsoft is less than good. I'm not going to use the words that they use, but if you use Microsoft and they see that you're active in the community and you're truly committed to that, they start to respect you. You're not just that squeaky wheel who just likes to complain and just
Mhm.
complain and complain to complain. But what it's going to do is, if you're making suggestions on how to make things better, then Microsoft's going to listen. It's not just complaining, but how do we make this better? How do we work better together in the ecosystem? And that's the one thing I've learned in my, in this executive position at the IAMCP, is working with these executives, and they truly are listening to you as a partner, and not just to whine, but
Yeah.
really coming up with good suggestions on how to improve the partner program.
Yeah, and I picked up a lot there. I think one thing that's critical to me, and I think you mentioned it, right? There's frustration sometimes in the partnership or relationship, I guess I would call it. Um, yeah, dang it, Brett, you took the words out of my mouth. I'll just let you get the action here. Stop being the noise and become part of the solution.
He's right.
That more succinctly, I'm a very verbose person. He said it much more less words than I was going to use. But I was going to say that, like, if you're frustrated, then we're offering an opportunity here, or you, at least, Peter, are offering an opportunity for people to express that frustration and to try to make part of the change. And I think, this year, what was it? SMB eclipsed spend on enterprise and tech. And nobody's blind to that actual statistic, and let alone Microsoft. And so, I think there is an opportunity here where these partnerships are growing because of the downstream economics of the way that MSP support businesses. And so, be part of that solutioning as we look into the next couple of years or few years, as SMB continues to outpace some of that enterprise spend. And so, I picked that up. And the last thing, I'll say here is, on when you were talking about this, always be active listening and be where your clients are. I think also be where your partners are too, is an opportunity where it's, you can drive impact. People, I don't think, understand, as an ISV on the ecosystem side, we want that feedback too. And so I think, being able to be in those rooms and provide that feedback is powerful. And no, you're good. Don't need to apologize. You just said it better than I did. So let's jump into some resources, right? We're about a half hour mark. We want to kind of wrap up here in about 15 to 20. I joined IAMCP today. We talked about some of that subject matter expertise. I'm going to get access to peers, which, by the way, I can anecdotally support. Some of the people I've met through IAMCP have been really wonderful folks so far and have helped me a lot. They have that same go-giver mentality as that whole MSP community as a whole tends to have. So it's really nice to be a part of that. But what else as far as like programming or resourcing or education outside of the events and the subject matter expertise? Like, do I get access to some, content, or what do I get access to as soon as I sign up?
There's so much content. It's just, we need more than 15 minutes to go through
Sure.
the content.
What about the buckets? Like, what kind of buckets of content do I get access to?
Well, there's, if you break it down, and let's say you're a business owner, there are buckets that deal with, from a marketing perspective, and how to use your marketing dollars, your co-op dollars. A lot of people are not aware of how much money is sitting there for marketing, and what can you use it for. I use it for training my people. I use it for going to conferences. I use it for seminars, webinars, things like that. I didn't know about that stuff. It took me a year to find out where the co-op dollars were, and then I was like, "Where do I find this?" And finally, somebody from the INCP, told me exactly where it was, and I was like, "Oh!" And now I'm monitoring it all the time. I'm like, "Wow, I got X number of thousands of dollars to spend, and I have to spend it before, you know, June 30th or whatever the time frame is."
Mm-hmm.
So from a marketing perspective, and you have people, former Microsoft people who are leading, who are part of the IMCP now, who were involved in marketing, who understand how to position your company. It's all about solutions. If you're just there to push licensing, you're not going to be very successful. If you're there pushing solutions or solving business problems and having outcomes, you're going to be successful. So that's from the marketing perspective. From the operations perspective, how do you become relevant in the Microsoft ecosystems in terms of designations? And there are people who are just experts on that, on
Mm-hmm.
designations, and you know and looking at your customers and doing audits on your Microsoft, the partner center. And I had somebody yesterday, I was at a session yesterday at Microsoft, and there was some gentleman who says, "How do I know I'm not being ripped off by Microsoft?" And I said, "Well, you need to understand Partner Center and how to get in." He said, "Well, I don't have the time for this." I said, "Well, there are a ton of resources in the IMCP who will do this. They'll either there's there's definitely a webinar on it, so
Yeah.
you could watch that first just to get an overview of that. And if you want even more, somebody to manage that, there are organizations that will do that also for you. So that's another perspective. People. That's why I say, you know, engage people who are smarter than you or know more than you. And there are definitely people in the INCP who understands that.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the knowledge you gain. We're doing a program where we actually got some funding from Microsoft to it's called the partner, in terms of getting partners engaged in selling Copilot. And the whole point is just to, get partners trained up on how to sell Copilot, what you need to learn. And this is a brand new program, and we're rolling this out in the next 15 days, and we have to finish this up by the end of Microsoft's fiscal year, which is June 30th. And that I've been away, so I'm sort of have to get caught up with that whole thing. And we put it out there, and like 40 people signed up within 24 hours. They're like, "Holy smokes!" That means that there's a real need for that. So the INCP, the purpose is to identify those gaps between what Microsoft is providing. Maybe distribution's not really doing it well enough, but when it's presented by partners who understand how you work, and it's coming from a peer rather than coming from a vendor or coming from a distributor or whatever that is, because they understand your pain points in terms of how do you talk to your customers, because that's the business they're in also.
I love it. I think, Peter, I picked up a few different things there. I heard, if you're looking what value you might get out of the IMCP, just call it in the first 90 days. There's content around getting your designations and your training. There's content around how to get into the MDF and get those funds from Microsoft, and what the partner center is all about, and how to capture that CSP revenue if you're not today. And then I heard something really interesting, and I saw it too come through as a member, about that Microsoft Copilot training resource. That's a powerful thing that I think is what a lot of people are looking for, and love that that's a program, because that's helping drive a lot of what we talk about on the show, which is about selling AI or operationalizing AI in your customer's environment. So that's a super powerful resource. I chose the 90-day target for a reason. I think, within the first 90 days, walk me through two things, Peter. In the first 90 days, what do you think as an IMCP member you'll get outside of, if there's any other nuggets outside of what I just shared, what else might you be exposed to? I know there's a lot there. There's community, there's peers, there's designations, there's the MBF, there's the AI sales, there's the webinars. But what are you in those first 90 days? And then I know you're running something special around the relationship of the first 90 days. So maybe give me the first 90-day journey of a normal IAMCP member, and then what it looks like.
So first, I'm going to do the plug.
Yeah, I know. I teed you up on the plug.
I've been waiting. I've been waiting all this time to talk about the plug and the offer. So we've had this for a while, so it's not something new. So, and what we want to do is demonstrate to partners the value of the IAMCP. So we're offering a $1 membership. So for the first 90 days, you get to try out the IAMCP for $1. Mm-hmm. And then within that one, and that also puts pressure on. That's definitely less than a cup of coffee. I'll tell you.
Peter, in today's economy, that's less than a candy bar. I don't know if you can buy anything for $1 anymore. We got rid of the penny. We might get rid of the dollar next. So that's a good deal.
So for $1, you get access to all our content. And you get oriented. Your chapter is supposed to reach. So you join a chapter. There's a New York chapter. There's a Chicago chapter. There's a Florida chapter. There's a Atlanta chapter. There are chapters throughout all of U.S. Go to a meeting. You could show up for a meeting, or you can join it virtually. And you could join any chapter virtually. Everybody's virtual. You want to try the New York City chapter, except for this next one, which is going to a Yankee game, you won't be able to join virtually. But you can certainly come to the Yankee game.
I don't know if I need any more 17-hour days, Peter, but I might. I don't know. Let's see.
But you get access to look at look at what they're covering in their meeting, and they have different subject matter experts, whether they're talking about marketing, operations, licensing, partner center specific. But you have a whole array of people that you can choose from in terms of what chapter you join. And you can, I'm talking about the meetings now. So go to a few meetings, try them out. We do have a partner orientation. We have 2 people who are in charge of membership who do a great job, and we're always looking to improve that. And talk to some of the members. What are you getting out of it? How do I? And what's pretty cool about it is, I know with New York City, we used to have people join from various areas, whether it was APAC or EMEA. All of a sudden, you have somebody from India showing up at your meeting and say, "I'm coming to New York next month. Can I come to your meeting?" We go, "Absolutely. Please join us. Come and join us." So it is welcoming, a very welcoming. So we don't just take any partner out there. So there are people who join who you need to have if you want to be a voting member, you need to have an MPN number. If you want to just be if you don't have that MPN number, you just want to join as just a regular, outside vendor, you can certainly do that, but you have no voting privileges. So talk with partners, look at the content. And again, there's so much content out there. It's ridiculous. It's, and half of it, I would say probably 70% of it, people are just not aware of it. And I just, my brain is always going, I need to get this information out. This is like my aha moment right now it's like, how do we create a catalog of everything that's out there that's been happening in the last year that's absolutely the partners have to see. And that's, I'm putting that on my to-do list, my ever long to-do list.
Yeah. But I think a central hub, super powerful, I'm also a GTIA member, and I know we went through that trial of like, you're a new member, what do you get? Just having that journey mapped out to where you know what you're walking into, super powerful. But there's obviously a lot, and it's like, where do I go, and what piece of content's relevant to every person's tough. So I can appreciate some of the improvements, internally and externally as you're working with the relationships. And from my perspective, I look at, one last topic I want to hit. It's about Microsoft. It's a little less on the IMCP side, but about the Microsoft, because clearly you're invested and you're a believer in the ecosystem. What do you think Microsoft, or what do you think MSPs should be prioritizing in their Microsoft practice to win in 2026? Like, what are the areas that you're seeing are improving or have opportunity for an MSP today?
So if you're an MSP, you're creating, some great solutions for your clients. You need to let Microsoft know. There's so many co-sell opportunities with the sellers uh, out in the field, but they're not going to know who you are unless you're active in Partner Center. You have those designations and things like that. So there's certain sort of requirements you need to put into place in order to get somebody's attention,
Okay.
because then you're sort of front and center with them. We were lucky enough to be introduced to one of the Microsoft sellers. It was 3-4 years ago. And at first, we were just sort of getting to know them. And all of a sudden, we started to get some traction. And then they actually, had somebody reach out. They sent us a couple of leads and we closed them. And all of a sudden they were like, hey, these
Yeah.
these people are about something. And then I just had a conversation with him about 3 weeks ago, and he says, "You're one of my top performing partners."
Wow.
And I'm telling you, we were not anywhere near the top before.
Yeah.
And it's just not. It wasn't just them feeding us leads, but having a better understanding of how to position Microsoft,
Hmm.
and how to, in terms of, the licensing and optimizing licensing, which is important. You want to be able to save your clients money, and also making them see where there are opportunities for them to improve their business. Where there are gaps, in terms of their training. And Copilot is just, we're just scratching the surface with Copilot. I mean,
Yeah.
just think of what's actually possible, and not to eliminate people. I mean, people see Copilot, you're gonna eliminate 20% of your staff.
Hmm.
No, all your overworked people are now going to be empowered, and you're going to give them tools to be able to service whoever their clients are, constituents, vendors, partners, etc. So
Yeah.
it's an exciting time, and I love being a partner, and because you have that flexibility to create whatever you think will make the biggest impact.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's one of the big frames I heard yesterday about. I want to pick on that ROI thing real quick before we jump into the closing segment around. Um, is it going to cut employees? I think that's a real conversation track that we heard yesterday. And I really loved sitting in this roundtable where I heard people talking about it amplifying the experiences that they offer today, amplifying that warm feeling when the customer comes into their restaurant, or amplifying the productivity of their construction firm and ability to do procurement at scale. Um, it's about amplification, and I think the stories we keep hearing on layoffs are really up in that big upstream market and down in the SMBs where we serve. It's about amplification. And the ROI is real, just given the absolute productivity gains. But it requires some of the topics we touched on earlier, but didn't dive on. But it requires that training, that enablement, that governance, that strategy. Um, AI rollouts fail every day, and 99% of them aren't because it's the wrong tech. It's usually about the wrong enablement and the whole surrounding package. And so,
Yes, absolutely.
um, I love it. Look, Peter, we're at 9:45. I want to get this wrapped up. I ask one final question before going into our final segment. I do like 6 final things, Peter. So my one question is, what didn't I ask you today that you thought we might talk about on the show?
What didn't you ask me? Oh my God. Well, what
It's always a
coffee I'm
stumper.
drinking?
It's always a stumper, Peter. But I'm just curious, what didn't we talk about that you think we should talk about as we wrap up?
No, it's about, we talked a lot about the IAMCP and the difference it makes. It's it's the INCP is everybody talks about sort of a couple of things. One is operational maturity, and the IMCP sort of helps with operational maturity. So that's an important thing, because if you're sharing information, sharing knowledge, etc., and you have a better way of doing things, it's the one thing that we didn't really cover is from the IMCP standpoint is P2P. There are a lot of partners who are partnering with one another. They may have a deal that's out there, but they're missing expertise. So you can call upon somebody who may be much better at SharePoint than you are, or Fabric, or some other area where you don't have that expertise. So I think the question is like, how are people, members of the IMCP, partnering with one another, and because that's absolutely huge, and that's the one area where it's, if you could partner with somebody. We had something come in. There's somebody in India that has a client in New York and needs a New York presence, and all of a sudden they looked us up. They said, "Hey, do you want to partner on this? We need your expertise. We need maybe boots on the ground, etc." We're like, "Absolutely, let's talk." So there's a lot of partner to partner activity of people who are outside, because it's the International Association of Microsoft Channel Partners, which means there's partners around the globe, and having that ability to talk to somebody, like we needed a partner in the UK. There's an IMCP member in the UK we could reach out to. So, that's how we're leveraging the IMCP from a partner to partner perspective. And we have people, Paul Solsky, who is doing an incredible job with P2P, and he absolutely is knocking it out of the park. And and we're going to be enhancing that. We're going to put systems in place that will help people find other people with maybe an expertise that they don't
Yeah.
have to close a deal. So that's the area that we didn't really touch on at all, but
Yeah.
I think it's really important.
I love it. We're going to go into the wrap up, but Martial asked a question. I want to get your answer, but we'll keep it to like a 2-minute window to keep us on time. I know we are running on the back, but Martial asked, what is exciting you in 2026 that you think all MSPs should be paying attention to?
I think that's a great question. I mean, everything is AI. It's just AI and leveraging license mix with Microsoft. So I'm answering from a Microsoft perspective.
Yeah.
Is you need to look at their licensing from a perspective. Are they really in the appropriate licensing SKU to leverage, everything? Because you need to look forward. You don't want to look back. They said, well, we have business premium, this is fine, but maybe they need E3 or E5, but maybe, there are other ways of doing it rather than spending a full boat, or E7, which is absolutely new SKU. So from a partner perspective is look for the new SKUs that are out there, particularly the E7 SKU, which is coming out tomorrow.
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 Tomorrow's a
So
big day for Microsoft. They've
yeah,
got agent control plane. They've
yes.
got, I think, CoWorks becoming a next round of wave out rollout, and they've got E7 all coming out at
Yeah.
once.
So, the frontier partner is, roll it out in your shop, see what the impact is, measure it, embrace the people who can become champions for your organization. You really leverage, you want to sort of raise that excitement level to say, hey, let's take half a day or whatever, or 3 days or a week or whatever it is, go create something that solves this problem for me,
Yeah.
and see what they come back with. So it's about the frontier, and I don't mean to sound like Microsoft. This is Microsoft's message. It's really, how do you leverage what's being given to you? If you look at Copilot licenses, if you're at a certain point, you get like 20, 30 licenses for free. I mean, for free, as part of, if you fulfill a designation, look at your designations, because if you hit those designations, you get free either consulting licenses, etc. If you are selling to partners, to clients, make sure they buy 11 licenses or more, because anything under 11, it doesn't count. So like, we have a few that are 10 that we're going to gift them licenses, because it's considered a net new client from a Microsoft's perspective. Pay attention to your partner center. Look in there. If there's a client there who's no longer working with you, get rid of them. Because they're going to be a negative impact on your partner center. So pay attention to that. I go to partner center probably too much now, because I don't trust it as much as I used to, because they're still working out some of the glitches there. But pay attention there. But it's going to be frontier. It's going to be everything. In terms of the worker, it's those types of things that are going to take the partner. I downloaded every ticket we ever had, and I said, what was the 10 biggest problems that we've had over the year? And I was able to do that within a minute or two. And then you could train around that.
I think there's just, and to answer Marcial's question in a succinct manner, I heard the things you think everybody MSP should be paying attention to in 26 are a few things. One, sounds like that licensing mix, be really nailed in on your licensing mix. Two, understanding, oh my goodness, I lost track. So licensing mix, and then understanding, the last part there was frontier. And understanding frontier and what's going on in frontier and staying abreast with it. One thing I'll say that I felt in the rooms yesterday around some of these SMBs and the framing of frontier, and this was a learning for me, is like frontier is here. Like frontier is all the way here. And a lot of times our customers are all the way here, and it feels impossible to get to frontier. The way I've been thinking about it as I flew home and was writing up some learnings today was frontier isn't a end state. Frontier is a journey. And I think if you reframe your thinking as you're talking to your customers, that yes, frontier today is all about agents and automation and digital employees and wave 3 and all these different things. And you say, hey, I'm going to help you get to frontier, and it's going to be a journey. That's where you can bridge that gap and create that opportunity. And so I think there's a lot of opportunity with all the innovation. Every MSP cycle we've ever seen has proven it. A brand new innovation occurs, we grow. And so this is another opportunity to grow. And I think the Microsoft ecosystem's kind of, well, maybe not the cutting edge, nailing it when it comes to having that governance and that guardrail and the security all built in. So
and also clean up your house. That's so important in terms of the governor. Data governance is just clean up your house. It's
Peter,
don't be the shoemaker's children.
Sorry, no, go ahead. I'm just laughing at a comment in chat. I'll bring it in when you're done.
Okay, I'm done.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you. We're going to skip a segment, which is our normal wrap-up segment called the Espresso Shots. It's a rapid-fire wrap-up, but because we're at the 55-minute mark. And Marcial asked just a wonderful question that Peter's been dying to answer this entire show.
Boy, here we go.
Here comes the shameless plug.
There we go.
IAMCP. See, Marcial knows my show always ends.
He's like 4 blocks from my office. Marcial, come on over. We'll share. We'll have some coffee. We'll talk about it.
But bring your dollar bill, because Peter wants your dollar bill to get started.
No, there is. Well, you're going to send out a newsletter tomorrow. We're going to put the URL in there where you can join the IAMCP chapter. And Marcial, come to the Yankee event. We're going to have a Yankee event on the 19th of May. So you need to come to that. And you can certainly come as my guest. But Oh, there we go. Look at
Yeah.
that. Look at that.
So I'll send that out tomorrow as well, but it's IAMCP.org. Go to the game with Peter. That is an absolute good call out.
That's right.
But I mean, Peter, we're at the end of the show. I wanted to thank you. I want to thank Marcial. I want to thank Brett, Ben, Mark, Sandy, everybody who jumped in and had questions and made it a fun morning for both of us. Thanks again. It's all, as always, Coffee Chats come back next Thursday. Super excited for our upcoming guests, our upcoming talks, and then we'll be going live at MSP GeekCon, which will be really fun. With the last Coffee Chats turns 1 year old at MSP GeekCon.
Wow.
And so we have, that'll be our 56th episode. And we have Ashley coming back live. She was the one who did the first episode. And we're doing a 12 months of major AI innovations. And we're going to look and see whether they were flops or whether they were real stories. So we did month-to-month stories. So stay tuned. We'll see you soon. And Peter, thanks so much for being on today. It's been a wonderful day.
No, thank you. This is a great opportunity. Always fun talking with you.
Likewise. Have a wonderful week, everybody. Cheers.